Before we start, just want to give special thanks to Audio46 for giving me these review units of the Sony XM5 and the Yamaha YH-L700A. If you click the links down below, you can purchase or read more about the two headphones from Audio46, and you'll also help support the channel if you purchase these headphones through that link, and I would be very, very grateful. So today I'm going to be pitting the $400 Sony XM5 up against a lesser known $500 wireless model, albeit from a similarly well-known company that left me pleasantly surprised by the time I was done listening with it. That headphone is the catchily named Yamaha YH-L700A. The L700A isn't Yamaha's first foray into the wireless headphone market by any means, and actually sits on the top of the line of their A series of wireless headphones. I'll be comparing the XM5 and 700A's technical specs and wireless features, go over their comfort and physical design, and of course, get into what they sound like. But first, let's take a look at what comes in their boxes. With the Sony XM5, you get a semi-firm carrying case, your XM5 headphones, an 1/8" cable, and a USB to USB-C charging cable. And with the Yamaha L700A, you get a carrying case, your L700A headphones, an 1/8" cable, and a flight adapter. So let's start with something that both headphones have going for them, their fit and their physical design. I can safely say that both are extremely comfortable and lightweight, and while the XM5 is significantly lighter at 250 grams versus the 700A's 330 grams, this is a weight class where heavy discomfort isn't really going to come into play. Not much to complain about when it comes to the clamp pressure on either headphone, though it's worth noting that there's notably more clamp pressure with the Yamaha, but it's within what we could call a normal range. This is more so a testament to the XM5's exceptional ability to carry itself gently while still getting a nice passively isolating seal around the ears. This also has a lot to do with the pads that we see on both headphones. Both seem to be made from synthetic leather and memory foam, but the pads on the XM5 are the apex of cushy, slowly expanding, foamy comfort. The 700A's pads are a bit more firm and mostly just left a neutral impression on me, which is good enough. So all of that said, comfort is unlikely to be truly a make or break quality in deciding between these two headphones. Though if you pushed me, I would say that the XM5 is maybe just a bit more comfortable. I also want to mention that the L700A could possibly be too big for some heads. I had the sliders set at their shortest position and the fit was just right, whereas for most headphones, including the XM5, I need to extend the sliders just a little bit. Now, when it comes to look, you can see for yourself and form your own opinions, but I like how the XM5 looks, but really love the style of the 700A. The XM5 has this understated, simple, and clean vibe to it, truly a textbook headphone. The 700A, however, has this nice mesh-like texture going on all over it with the sexy Yamaha logo on the sides. There's also something I just spontaneously like about the slanted, angular, rectangular shape of the cans. It stands out just enough to make it truly unique, and blends in just enough so you don't feel silly and self-conscious wearing it out in public. Now, for the technical side of things, we see a 40mm dynamic driver in the Yamaha and a 30mm dynamic with a neodymium magnet in the Sony. But let's talk about the specs that you're probably watching this video for, their wireless features and performance. Starting with ANC. This is pretty simple and very apparent. The XM5 has awesome ANC, while the Yamaha L700A is a little lackluster here. It's good enough, it'll make the sound of a train or a jet engine negligible, but the Sony really delivers that vacuum-sealed sort of silence. It seems likely that this has a lot to do with their passive isolation as well, with the Sony blocking out significantly more noise than the Yamaha even when comparing the two with their power off. That said, the L700A can get louder, much louder than the XM5. This is less about the XM5 not getting loud enough, which I certainly think it does, and more about the L700A being capable of pumping out very, very high listening levels. Max volume, or even 85% volume on the Yamaha, was painfully loud and had me jumping to set the volume lower. But this is really nice to see from Yamaha and something it has going for it over the Sony XM5. As for battery life, both units are pretty respectable, but the Yamaha arguably wins this round by a narrow margin. 34 hours with ANC on versus the Sony's 30 hours with ANC on. If you choose to use the 3D sound field settings on the L700A simultaneously with its ANC, the battery life sees a pretty drastic decline to 11 hours. I don't really hold this against the headphone though, and maybe you'll see why when I get to what the sound field settings really are. When it comes to Bluetooth and codecs, the Sony XM5 is the clear winner with its Bluetooth 5.2 and high-res LDAC codec. The Yamaha L700A falls a little short here, with Bluetooth 5.0 and aptX Adaptive being the highest quality codec it offers. So the Sony XM5 is offering a stronger connection and higher resolution audio, but I'm at least happy to report that pairing with both headphones was very easy and was always done without a hitch. When it comes to the apps, Sony wins again with its numerous offerings controlling adaptive noise cancellation, a customizable 5-band EQ, enabling DSEE Extreme, which in short upsamples lossy audio files, and also enables 3D audio. Yamaha's app notably lacks an EQ and is mostly focused around its 3D audio. Let's finally get into the Yamaha's 3D sound field settings. So this is one of the strangest, funkiest, and most interesting settings I've come across in a headphone. Basically, through a series of phase tricks, and it seems like maybe even additional reverb in certain settings, you choose between different 3D room settings. These are called background, music, cinema, drama, music video, concert hall, outdoor live, and audio room. Some sound pretty good. Background music, concert hall, and studio were my favorites of these settings, and outdoor live for certain tracks. Others were a bit of a miss, either sounding spatially awkward or throwing too heavy of a wrench into the balance. But overall, I have a ton of respect for this feature, though admittedly find it a little funny. Kinda seems like a feature more in line with an effects pedal for musical instruments. However, this just really makes me wish that Yamaha included a multi-band EQ in their app, because it seems like it would be a lot of fun and satisfying to strike a nice EQ balance alongside with these stage options. But anyway, this is a good enough place to segue into discussing how the headphones sound, starting with Soundstage, and I'll start with the 700A while you still have the 3D sound field fresh in mind. Without a 3D sound field, there isn't much depth to the Yamaha stage. However, there's an impressive width present that seems like a junior version of the stage I hear when I'm listening with Focal's Bathos. With sound field settings on, this expansive width actually takes a little bit of a hit, but depth and height become much more apparent and engaging. With the Sony XM5, I don't really have much to say for the stage without 3D audio enabled. It's a pretty typical wireless stage, fairly small and linear, but adequate enough so as to accurately preserve instruments' placements in its stereo field without sounding clogged. But once you flip on 3D audio, it's a whole new experience. Height, width, depth are all impressively present. But you'll have to make sure you're using a service that allows for 3D audio playback, while the 700A lets you go crazy with the 3D qualities regardless of what you're listening to. So I'll summarize the stages as such. Without any 3D audio, the L700A wins for the respectable width it has to offer. However, the XM5 pulls off its 3D audio a bit more naturally and perhaps with a greater size. But again, it needs a 3D audio source. So I really mean it when I say that this round on Soundstage is pretty much a tie, and will vary based on whatever qualities you value. Now, for balance. Both headphones definitely put most of their stock in their low ends. Common enough to see with wireless headphones. Pop and electronic listeners will be pretty happy here with either. But for me, the L700A sets itself apart from the XM5 for its low and mid-range separation. I take issue with how much high bass is present in the Sony XM5. Some people might call this warm, but I think it crosses this line and gets a little sloppy. Lower male vocal fundamentals are just too forward, and the impactful mid-bass presence in bass lines or low-end instruments becomes a little harder to appreciate as they compete with the high bass presence. Yamaha's L700A gives some of that high bass warmth, but to my ears, keeps it very reasonable. Mid-bass is the star of the low end, and it comes through powerfully without overshadowing the rest of the mix. On top of that, it has a pretty nice, albeit V-shaped mid-range that nonetheless kept vocals sounding surprisingly natural, especially for a wireless headphone, though perhaps a little on the quiet side due to its recessed center mids. But overall, the low and mid distinction on the Yamaha L700A left me appreciating the lows and mids more than I did on the XM5. Moving on to the higher frequencies, both headphones perform fairly well here, especially as this is frequently where wireless balances start to struggle. The L700A's low treble brings a nice lifting quality that complements its mid-range. It's exciting and detailed and pretty natural sounding through most of its mid-treble as well, and then it kind of falls off a cliff. Something a little peculiar is going on with the L700A's highs that originates from what seems to be a fairly early and sharp treble roll-off. This didn't give it a muffled sound by any means, but kind of messed with dynamics. It left me with several moments where I thought to myself, that tambourine or cymbal or high guitar part isn't usually that quiet. Now, the Sony XM5 also features a somewhat early treble roll-off, but ultimately pulls off its highs with a more natural but gentle sort of quality. I didn't have those odd problems with high-frequency dynamics, nor did I have any issues with shrillness or peakiness really, although the treble-sensitive may take a little issue with its mid-treble, which comes across with some edge on aggressive distorted guitars or even string instruments for that matter. So for the higher frequency balance, I somewhat preferred the Sony XM5. Now, with all that said, I generally preferred the L700A's balance to the Sony XM5's, despite the kind of weird dynamics in the 700A's upper, perhaps mid treble. I have to admit, the equalizer on the XM5 really does serve it well, and when I pulled down a chunk of its high bass, I liked what I was hearing a lot more than I heard in its default balance. Ultimately, I gotta give credit to the headphone that sounded better fresh out of the box, even if, unfortunately, there's no equalizer to be found with it. So a quick summarizing recap on both headphones that focuses on their strengths. With the XM5, you get better noise cancellation and Bluetooth connection, you get a high-res LDAC codec, a more developed and customizable app experience with an equalizer, bigger, more natural-sounding 3D audio, and a more balanced treble profile. With the 700A, you're looking at a wider default soundstage, very creative 3D audio control, a louder max volume, maybe better battery life unless you're using the 3D sound field settings, and significantly more clarity in the low end and mid-range. What both headphones have going for them are a lightweight comfort, stylish design, fun, bassy balances, and very catchy names. So my preferences ultimately swung towards the Yamaha, though I admit it's kind of for nerdy and niche reasons, a really big one of those just being how creative it got with its 3D sound field settings. But I think the Sony XM5 is a more accessible and friendly headphone with its convenient and well-developed wireless features. To generalize with a broad stroke, if you have the priorities of an audiophile, or a collector for that matter, there's something very exciting and enjoyable about the Yamaha L700A. If you're more of an everyday listener or hold usability and convenience in very high regard for your wireless headphones, the Sony XM5 is likely more up your alley. I'm placing links in the description down below where you can read more about or purchase the Yamaha YH-L700A and Sony XM5 from Audio 46. If you purchase either, by clicking those links, you will help support the channel, and I will be eternally grateful. If you want to see more videos and reviews like this one, feel free to like and subscribe below. Anyway, this is Chris with Major Hi-Fi, and I'll see you next time.